What is the potential of this crisis for the emergence of a 21st century economy? I'm Shinta Oosterwaal, economist and executive team coach, and I'm asking for thinkers, seers and doers. What now? So, Manfred, thank you very much for participating in this interview series.
It's You're welcome. Good to be your guest.
Thank you. So this interview series really originated from my own idea, my own need to connect with a timeline that is hopeful. And as Churchill said, never waste a good crisis. I also wanted to shed some light on, in Chinese, the sign for crisis has two symbols, right? It has threaten or danger, and then opportunity as well. So we can read all about the danger timeline on the regular media. And I also wanted to shed some light on the opportunities timeline. So I'm really grateful to be able to speak to you today. Manfred, would you be able to introduce yourself?
Yes, I am a lover of movies. I'm a lover of stories. I watch one movie at least a day. And it is my core business to extract some clips from movies to show how the narrative is at the same time universal and unique. So I train leaders, I train educators, and I love to work on a new story for humanity. So we have a model called DoubleHealix, and it's like a cyclical model that hopefully gets to higher levels of complexity and embrace.
Well, a perfect model, I think, to apply to today's society.
Yes. The model knows it's like a year cycle, so it has like 12 months. And at the moment we are in this synchronistic moment that we go into a crisis and we can have a call to adventure. So it's a double helix. It's like there's one story ending and there's one story starting. So yeah, it's a wonderful opportunity.
Mm-hmm. What to you would be the story that is starting?
The story that is starting is that we can reach a higher level of time binding. I think what we need to learn as humans, and we're pretty good at it. I'm not saying that we're making mistakes. I think we're learning step by step to bind time. The first achievement that humanity made was to store some grain for difficult times. So we started warehouses where we stored some food for the winter and for difficult times, and that's time binding. We learn to plan and we learn to think ahead. Mm-hmm. And now we as humanity are learning to think ahead, maybe 50 or 100 years, and we need to adjust our thinking to sacrificing small parts of what we are doing now in order to have a good life for our children and grandchildren. So it's a difficult challenge, because we are also living beings that love to enjoy the moment, and so this is one aspect, is that we need to learn time binding. And for me, another aspect is that we need to learn to find a new religion. Mm-hmm. I think we as humanity have created a very funny religion of extracting stuff from the earth, putting value on it, and believing that money is something that we need to get more from, and we used money as a means, and now it started to be a goal, and I think we should go past that, and we should have new high priests. We had high priests a long time ago that said, okay, I can predict the return of the moon. And that was one of the first high priests. And then we got high priests that say, I can talk to God, and if you give me your possessions, I will get you a place in heaven. And now we have high priests called economers, bankers, corporations. Those are our new churches, and we need to say goodbye to those temporary religions. I mean, we use those religions to feel safe, to improve our life, to give us the illusion of control. And I think we need to find a new religion.
So in a transformed world, what would that religion be, and who would be the high priests?
Well, I think the high priest could be the people who can give us a little more connection to the bigger whole. So it's always the same. Any priest promises to have connection with God or with happiness or bliss. So the next priest should be a little more honest, a little more connecting to the uncertainty of life. So it's not an easy message. It's not an easy message because the easy message is, I can give you certainty. If you sell me your soul, I will give you a house. I will give you health. I will give you vaccinations. I will give you compound interest. So that sounds pretty certain, and that's why we give ourselves to those priests. And I think the next generation of priests, they don't have that much of a nice message. So the next level of priest would say, I will give you stories to deal with uncertainty, to deal with your own fragile nature, to deal with your own need for respect for nature, for the fact that you are mortal, the fact that you are an experiencing sentient being. It's not an easy message, but if we as humanity can grow into that message, we don't need to have that much painkillers, because we are addicted to all kinds of painkillers at the moment. And I think the next generation will need to learn to live with a little more pain, a little more uncertainty, and learn to enjoy beauty like nature, or the big waves that we are part of. That it's a possibility. I'm not saying it will happen, but I see the possibility.
And is that a difficult message? Is it why is it necessary?
It's not necessary. So I think it's possible, because necessary. I feel it as inevitable that we will perish as a species, or that we will be decimated as a species if we don't stop killing ourselves. Because if we destroy our habitat, it's very simple. It's a very simple prediction that we will not survive. It's very simple, and it's not a problem. But I would love for humanity to learn, and I would love to be part of nature instead of exploiting nature. So, and it's a wonderful new thing. So I think there's a possible future for humanity where we can celebrate being human, where we can celebrate our stories, like we already are sharing our stories on the social media. So I think what's happening is a very beautiful possibility of transition towards a situation where we go past our fears of not being able to pay your mortgage, or not be able to fly to China, but that you can say, well, I feel an infinite abundance in this kind of conversations. I feel an infinite abundance walking on the beach and seeing how beautiful the waves are. So there's a new lesson to be learned, that there is an infinite abundance of beauty, and we're very close to it. It's like learning to be fulfilled. It's like learning to be happy in a way that is not destructive or not very destructive. I mean, humans like to destroy, and I think it's part of life, but the balance between enjoyment and destruction can be a little more towards enjoyment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. With these interviews, I'm trying to carve out a timeline to a future that holds all these values that you're talking about. So fulfillment and happiness, being part of a greater whole, being part of nature instead of exploiting nature. And I really feel that within this crisis, there's a possibility for these values to awaken more and more. Do you agree?
Yeah, it's already happening. Jeremy Rifkin, he pointed out that we are working towards more empathic embrace, and that one of the most interesting developments in modern consciousness is what he calls therapeutic consciousness. So when you find that you have been part of a circle with your family and with your culture, that you are inheriting all kinds of values, and that you're inheriting all kinds of traumas that you can work on, that make your life more difficult, but it also makes your life more, gives a depth. It helps you be part of humanity, and it makes the enemy closer. You can feel you are your own enemy, and at the moment that you feel, okay, wow, I have a lot of work to do within my own experience, then you don't need to have an external enemy. You can feel, okay, there's a lot of work to do, working on myself, working on our social interactions. That's the real task, and we can see it at the moment. In such a crisis like with the corona crisis, it helps us to realize, hey, the persons that do the real work are the teachers, are the people who are taking care of the ill and the elderly. So suddenly you can see a new kind of perspective, that the high priests don't really matter in times of when it all comes down to what really matters is your health, your interactions, your food, the quality of your food, and if you want to prevent, if we can, I'm not sure, but if you want to lessen the chance for these kinds of dangerous epidemics, you have to have a healthier population, you have to have a healthier food system, and you have to lessen the pressure on humanity and then the earth. So maybe we should fly less, or maybe we should help the world have better healthcare, or help China to have more hygiene, or whatever. But it's like this sense of we can make a step, and I'm not sure if this crisis is deep enough, but it helps a few individuals across the threshold towards the transition.
Mm-hmm. And how would that? I'm thinking you're almost speaking about becoming high priests of ourselves.
Yeah.
And how would we be able to take the opportunities that this crisis provides and then hold on to them and work towards that future that might be a more hopeful one?
Well, it's like waking up slowly, and it's not everybody has to wake to the same message and has to wake at the same time, but it's like seeing that the high priests of the last century have done a lot of good, and they have created a lot of wealth for a lot of people, but they had also a very destructive message. So we are starting to discover that one of the tricks that the high priests are doing is the creation of money out of nothing. It's like a ritual. Say, okay, I will create some more money, and then now you're in debt with me. That's a very funny trick. I mean, it's for many people it's still a magical trick. They say, oh wow, the banks, oh wow, the corporations, they give me money, they give me work, and we have to learn to see through that, and we have to wake up and say, wow, we could make our own money, not more than we need. And it's happening at the moment. The moment now the crisis is there, suddenly the government says, okay, we will make 1.5 trillion more, but we will have a lot of debt. Nobody is going to repay the debt. It's a ritual, and slowly people are going to see through. And the next high priest could be the farmer, or could be the natural healer, or could be the person. The corporation will be changing maybe to cooperations, where we say, okay, our new churches will be where we own renewable energy production ourselves. It has to do with ownership. At the moment, the high priests are moving towards a very elite ownership, and it's just a religion. It's just a religion. The fact that people say, oh, they own and half of the world, they own. It's a religion. You can learn to see through it. Nobody owns anything. It's like a story. Mm-hmm. So we can move past that story, and we can realize that we are all on this spaceship called Earth, and it's like one big cathedral, and if we can learn to worship, because I think people have a longing to worship. I think I like it. It's not, I don't say people should not worship, but we can come back to more matriarchal worshiping, where like we used to worship 3,000 years ago. We used to worship this lake, this tree, this animal was sacred. We can find that the way back to that feeling of sacredness of nature, and come back. It's like a circle. It's not a line. It's a circle, and we have strayed from that knowledge, and we can rediscover it like we're doing at the moment. The fact that so much more organic food is being produced, so much more people starting to eat vegan or vegetarian, I think it's a wonderful trend.
Yeah. Could you speak a little bit more about the farmer as a high priest?
Yeah, well, I think one of the most beautiful forms of religion is a knowledge of nature, that you know the rhythms of the sun, that you know the rhythms of when to harvest, when to sow. That's a sacred knowledge. And if you have the knowledge on how to work with nature instead of against it, then you also can work with your own nature. So I think people who have the skills to befriend nature and to work on the land and have this magical touch, they could be our real high priests, because they have knowledge we should learn as well. And this is also wonderful of this crisis, that you hear people, hey, I'm going to plant my own vegetables in my garden because I don't want to be so dependent on airplanes flying food in from Chile or whatever. So it's happening at the moment. There's a lost kind of knowledge that's coming back to people, and it will have an effect. It will have an effect that we, on the one hand, we have this urbanization, and I think it will be like a breathing process where we learn to go back to the more agrarian parts of the country, where we stay in contact with our food supply. It's a possibility. I'm not saying it will be like that, but it's a good possibility. And it will also have to do with can we have a more green transport? Can we Can we have more local transport, maybe electrical bikes that are not so polluting? Or we will find a way, and we will combine stuff. I love the fact that we can combine the city and the rural areas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems that you're speaking more about the practice of remembering,
Yeah.
befriending nature, remembering the wisdom, the sacred knowledge you mentioned.
Yeah.
I think that there's quite some effort now with people that are trying to grasp the opportunity of this crisis to um, innovate more, to find forms. And that feels like a forward energy. And you're actually speaking about, remembering. So that's, what else do we need to remember?
Well, I mean, Oprah Winfrey says it, Rudolf Steiner says it. It's like, remember your spirit. So, the true, if you know, I'm not saying I know the truth, but I feel something in my own heart that you can be richer if you remember that you are a spiritual being. So Oprah says, remember your spirit. Rudolf Steiner says, über Geist erinnern. It's like, you can go back and you can go forward. So I'm not against any technological development. I love technological developments, but you have to give them a kind of meaning, and that meaning has to come from the sense that you are part of enormous wisdom, and that you have to learn to listen to that wisdom. And it's very simple. It's like, okay, don't put so many animals in one farm. Don't do that. It's bad for the animals, but because it's bad for the animals, it's bad for you. And it's so simple. But we need to learn, and we need to say goodbye to the old high priest that says, oh, I can extract oil from you and for you, and then I can make plastic for you, and I will make your life easier. Yeah, true. And they did wonderful work, but we're finding out that that trick has some hidden costs, and that they don't pay those hidden costs. And we need to find a way that we say, okay, if somebody's going to play for high priest, then we need to do true costing, and we need don't do the disappearing trick. So we have done a disappearing trick. It's called externalization of costs. We say, okay, we produce something, but the waste and the poison, that's for a later generation. So again, we're coming back to the time binding.
Yeah. Yeah, and also the new narrative of wealth that you speak about, which is more maybe within, or at least different parameter.
Yeah.
So where would that leave? Where would that leave the let's say the current, or maybe the old high priests? So the economists and the corporate.
Well, we have to realize that by definition they cannot really be happy and fulfilled. That we need to realize that if you are following your greed, and you're following your need for power, it is also it's the duty of the society, it's the duty of the collective to say, hey, come on, don't be so rigid, don't get those claws. It's not good for you, it's not good for us. And so I think if we have people within a certain boundaries and within a certain level of power, and maybe rotate those power positions more easy, and raise children that are warned for greed and warned for very one-sidedness, it will be healthier for the old high priests, and it will be healthier for the collective. So I think in our educational system, we are learning to work towards what I call collective individualism. So you need to help children find their own individuality, and at the same time say you are going to be happier if you have some kind of service towards the collective. So try to find your own unique combination in order to serve the collective. So we don't need to go back to the collectivism of China, although they are doing well, but we should say goodbye to the very rigid individualistic thinking of we are all in this for ourselves. And it didn't work. It didn't work. It gave wonderful art. It gave wonderful. So it did wonderful things, and I love what we've done the last 100 years. But now the next step would be what I call collectivism. So it's a combination of collectivism and individualism.
Mm-hmm. And that collective individualism, how would that work?
It's already working. I mean, we are starting. Schools are starting their own gardens again. They are learning, teaching children to be part of nature. Where we will need to put care and agrarian skills in our schools, so that we learn to care for each other. We learn to care for the earth. Learn to receive. So this whole next generation is already being born, and it will go faster than we think. So yeah, we won't survive unless we do that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. I'm also really in service of this interview and seeing what needs to come up and what wants to come up from this timeline that is emerging. You've mentioned quite a few deeply human values that seem to be awakening and are already awake, as you just mentioned, the collective individualism. You mentioned quite a few that are maybe already the contours of a new society even. What would we really now need to let go to form that new society? And how would we do best do that?
Well, I think we need to face our true nature. I think we need to rediscover suffering. It sounds terrible, but I think the old religion that is crumbling at the moment is the fake religion of certainty and freedom from suffering. So I see a lot of American films, and I see it's normal for an American film that if somebody has stress, that he or she opens a bottle of bourbon or takes a Valium. Watch any series. It's like ingrained in their culture that the moment you suffer, you need to take a pill, or you need to and we do that. We take a lot of painkillers, and the funny thing is that they don't work. The people get more hollow, get more depressed, get more isolated. So I think what can be the next step is trying to accept the suffering of being human, and trying to accept the fact that because we are all connected, we will never be truly happy, whatever that may be, but happy as long as other people are suffering for us, like starving from hunger, or being in a war, or being in a polluted area, or digging up cobalt for our batteries. We need to realize that we cannot escape being connected, and by being connected, there is a level of pain that you should transform. Next to being happy and fulfilled. So I'm not saying it's all a bad story. I'm just saying that if you want to fulfill your human potential, you have to amplify your spirit power. You have to be you need a kind of new kind of ownership, and that's not I own a boat or I own an airplane. You say, no, I own my fate, and maybe I'm so strong that I can own some fate of humanity. And I think if we can come to that level, that you say the only ownership that you can really have is owning your fate and owning your suffering and owning your sovereignty, wow, I think then we are very close to the next phase. I wanted to say God, but that's a little pretentious.
Well, it would fit to the religious narrative. I'm really enjoying our conversation, Manfred.
Me too, me too.
There's some rich insight here. And my mind is also with, this is a conversation between me and you, and I understand you completely. We could talk about this for hours. And on purpose, I'm also trying to stay at the level of imagination. What is possible? And dare we dream about something instead of trying to make plans and strategize already, because I really feel that this is a time that we need to first deeply feel that potential of that crisis and only just sketch that future that we feel is emerging. And some of us can sketch and some of us can't sketch at all at this moment, which is perfectly fine. And I believe we shouldn't force anything into form just yet. But I'm also with my mind with the people that you and I on a daily basis see, leaders of corporations and big organizations. What would be your main message for your clients at this point of time?
Well, I don't need to give them a message. I see they are in their own process, and I see a lot of leaders leading this kind of dual job. I have to quote Jeremy Rifkin again, because he says so many wise things. He says we have to keep the old system on life support while we're building the new system. So. I see leaders doing that. I speak to a lot of leaders, and they know they're in an end game. They know it's their whole house of cards is falling down, and they know that, and and they're not dumb. They're very intelligent, so they know that there will be a transition towards a new business model, and it's going faster and faster. And all the leaders I talk to, if you have them in private, they have the same kind of conclusions. There will be a basic income. There will be more cooperations. There will be not so much possession anymore. There will not, even if I talk to the tax people, they know that the whole taxing system could change, and we don't need taxes. If we say, okay, we have this, we create money for a moment because we don't even need money, but we can, in the transition, we can generate as much money as we need to pay for the transition. It's already happening. I mean, if you look at how fast Tesla is changing the business model for internal combustion engines, where one of the things that's happening is very important, that they will blow away the dealer system, and the dealer system is something that has to do with planned obsolescence. So, and this is one of the things we're saying goodbye to now. Like we have been, it was normal that a light bulb would not work for longer than a year. Now slowly we're transitioning to LED or maybe new technology, that we say, okay, let's not put any planned obsolescence in it. Let's not plan to make it go broke, break it in a year. So this will change our whole business model, because we will not be able to make that much money with breaking stuff. And that will change our mind. The moment that you say, hey, we should not have a business model that is based on destruction, then we say, oh, but then we don't make any more money. No, good. Let's not make money anymore. Let's only print money or whatever, how you call it, just to as a means of exchange, because everybody wants to live, but not everybody needs to be indoctrinated by buy. It's a religion that we can say goodbye to. I like the word goodbye. That we need to make good buys, not bad buys. Sorry.
I think it's really important what you're saying about this goodbyes. So it means that we also need to pay attention to a process of mourning the old while dying, and then being kind of midwives to the new.
Yeah.
Also, economist myself, and I really feel that that's some of the if we really want to move forward, and we can because we have the intellectual capability to do so. But are we willing to expand our roles in that sense? It's interesting question to me.
Yeah, for me too.
Yeah.
And again, for me, it is. I love what's happening. If you see how well people are learning to enjoy stories, or what my task in this whole thing is that I want to point out, look, these are the most important archetypal experiences. This is like being human, and I think making a map of the human soul and pointing out all the points where you can say you can find true meaning here, you can find true meaning here, you can lift yourself to that level of thinking, try to work on the spirit power. That's such a nice work. And we talked about working with leaders. I work with a lot of leaders that have this spiritual training. They know how to meditate. They know that they're in an old ritual, and they are also looking for ways to make the step, and the step has to do with giving meaning to your life. So I'm working with an airplane company, and we all know that it's a temporary thing. We know that either we should learn to fly with hydrogen or clean methods, or we should not fly. And maybe if we have more pandemics, we will not fly at all, or we will not do that anymore because it's too dangerous. But if we continue to fly and we will start flying green, then the next thing is, how can we make this sacrifice that we ask from the earth, or how can we make it worthwhile? How can you learn when you go to China and you can become a better human being instead of a worse human being? And so the whole thing of consumingification, or will be charged with more meaning questions. Oh, what are you doing there? Why should you go? What is the added value? And also, and this is why I talked about working for this airplane company, or this transport company. We are working with the people who work there almost not saying in a psychotherapeutic session, because we're trying to prevent it becoming psychotherapeutic, but that you can work somewhere and that you realize, hey, I'm 8 hours of my life a day, I'm here. Why not use this energy to improve myself?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, okay, well.
Which would make organizations become more vehicles for personal development, maybe.
Well, yeah, slowly, because one of the problems with organizations is that the essence of their product attracts people with a certain kind of karma or a certain kind of personality, and like if you are in an organization, like say you take care of the prison system, that's a good product, but it's a dangerous product, because it will attract people who like to have a lot of walls. And so one of the problems is that we need to see that our organizations are reinforcing personality problems or one-sidedness in personalities, and that we need to find ways to say, okay, let's find a more universal aspect to it as well. So one of the questions is, how much specialization do we need in society, and how much general universal qualities do we need to train? And I don't have the answer, but I see working with the leaders of this moment, they are thinking about that question on if somebody is on the autistic spectrum and he's a very good programmer, should you say, okay, keep being on the autistic spectrum and be a good programmer, or should we also say we want to have you learn a little bit about empathy? And people who are too much on the empathy side should learn a little more result thinking. And so we are dancing with that question on specialization and universal skills. And I love what's happening. So I think it's already happening a lot.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. You spoke a little bit earlier about making a map of the soul, the human soul.
Yeah. I think we have just witnessed a wonderful person called Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson is a guy who wrote a very interesting book called Maps of Meaning, and he's in the tradition of the mythological thinking, and he flew very high. At the moment, he has crashed. It has become too much for him. But I think the reaction in the world, some people hated him, some people they were very grateful to him. But I think what he showed is that the time is ripe for maps of meaning, and that we are slowly moving into the psychological understanding of what Jung described as mandala. So the mandala is a symbol where you say it's a universal map. I have a few of those behind me. It's a way to map what's important in life. And what this conversation is also, that we're trying to map what is important in life. And the circle is a wonderful thing. I mean, we have the economists have this kind of one line we say, oh yeah, it's going well, oh no, but but you also need to think about cycles. Like every year there's a cycle, and there are bigger cycles, and the breathing is a cycle. So for me, there's this tension field between the square and the circle. It's like the square is like with lines, and the circle is like with repetition, and both of them are important. So this is why I think this image of the Vitruvian Man by Da Vinci, I think this is the most important image ever for me. It's like, yeah, the human being is in the circle, and the circle, the attempt to square the circle, it's impossible, but it's something we need to do. And I love this dance between the straight line and the circle, or the square and the circle. For me, this whole conversation is about that.
Yeah. So that's why it's important to map the human soul.
Yeah, and there are lots of people are doing it. I love it. Transactional analysis has tried it. We are trying it with DoubleHealix. Joseph Campbell has done it. It's a wonderful job, and I think the church, the Catholic Church, Buddhism, Hinduism, they are all working on it. They are all working on it.
When you speak about the soul, immediately the word evolution pops up in my mind. How is this crisis linked to the evolutionary process of humankind?
I think we are doing a wonderful job. We are moving towards a situation that we can embrace the whole of humanity in our soul. And we used to have a very small range of empathy. We say, okay, our group, our religion, so it was pretty local, and it was okay. I'm not saying that was wrong, But at the moment, I love the science of cultural differences. I love anthropology. I love the fact that we are seeing, holy shit, those Chinese really think different. Hey, wow, what can we learn from Africa? Ubuntu, wow. This is going very fast. So I think we are making huge steps.
Which would make it possible for us to dream a new future into existence, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, the future is dreaming us. I think we are a projection of God, and God is a projection of us. So it's happening at the same time. Yeah, and corporations, clean energy. I love what Tesla is doing. So yeah, there's a whole new business model being born, and we just need to say, okay, let's have a sharing economy. I mean, there's the only way out is to say, let's say goodbye to our own old religion of possession and have a mix of local possessions, local corporations, and then saying the heritage of humanity. I mean, you cannot say half of the earth is owned by 10 people or so. It's so funny. It's so funny. We have to say goodbye to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It will. Yeah.
The way the things that you mention also brings me to think about that we should get real about reality. So the world as we have perceived it and have dubbed it reality might have more depth to it, because all the things that you mention are not. We have all heard of them. We've all heard of these values. We've all heard of flipping that coin, coming up with new business models, being innovative in ways to set new narratives for well-being, etc., etc. But it seems that you're bringing the depth into existence by speaking about it more, and almost speaking about it as the new normal. And I really enjoy that. That makes it come alive so much more. It makes it, two sensible people speaking about the depth of reality as a new normal, for me, would be such a beautiful first step that we can already take right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're doing it. The fact that we can have this kind of conversation would have been impossible 20 years ago. So,
maybe a year ago.
Yeah, well, yeah. So it's like we are massaging our own humanity soul. So we need to repeat those things. There's this wonderful question on where does the word religion come from? So. Some people say it's from religare, it means reconnect, but other scientists say no, it's about spreading out the symbols every day. So it's like relegere. It's like repeating the mapping of the soul. So it's like every day you have to do the ritual. You have to think the new thoughts. You have to worship how beautiful life is. You have to enjoy conversations like this, and the fact that you're repeating it will give it more power. It's like charging your symbols.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is like religious. Yeah.
Well, on that note.
Yeah.
I think we've spoken a lot. Is there anything else to be said?
Yeah, I would love to give two poems. So I will give a short one and a long one. So I will give the short one first, and then I will give the long one. And you can cut the long one if you say that's ridiculous. But if you like the long one, you can keep it as the end, and people can shut off the video after the short one, or if they are patient, they can listen to the long one. How do you think about that?
That's great.
Okay. The short one, I think it's important meditation. It's come from Juan Ramon Jimenez. It's a Spanish poet, and I think it's a very important one. It's I am not I. I am not I. I am the one who goes by my side without me noticing, who I at times visit and who I at times forget. The one who remains silent, calmly when I speak, the one who forgives serenely when I hate, who goes where I do not come, and who will remain upright when I die. That's a short one. Are you willing to take the risk on the long one?
Sure, of
Okay,
course.
good, good. Well, it's a very old Maori meditation. It's a very old Maori meditation, and maybe it goes back for thousands of years. And it was written down in 1750, like then. It was, I'm not sure the date, but it was noted by one of those early conquerors, and it was translated by a British woman. So I'm going to give the English translation of Maori meditation. And the shaman who gave it is called Timeranapiri. It's the Maori meditation called My Law. So it's about karma. It's about dharma, karma and dharma. And here it goes. So you can close your eyes because it's going to take a while, but it's important. Here it comes. The sun may be clouded, yet ever the sun will sweep on its course till the cycle is run. And when into chaos the system is hurled, again shall the builder reshape a new world. Your path may be clouded, uncertain your goal. Move on, for your orbit is fixed to your soul. And though it may lead into darkness of night, the torch of the builder shall give it new light. You were, you will be, know this while you are. Your spirit has traveled both long and afar. It came from the source, to the source it returns. The spark which was lighted eternally burns. It slept in a jewel, it leapt in a wave, it roamed in the forest, it rose from the grave. It took on strange garbs for long eons of years, and now in the soul of yourself it appears. From body to body your spirit speeds on. It seeks a new form when the old one is done. And the form that it finds is the fabric you wrought on the loom of the mind from the fiber of thought. As dew is drawn upwards in rain to descend, your thoughts drift away and in destiny blend. You cannot escape them, for petty or great or evil or noble, they fashion your fate. Somewhere on some planet, sometime and somehow, your life will reflect your thoughts of your now. My law is unerring, no blood can atone. The structure you build, you will live in alone. And all that you ask for and all you desire must come at your bidding as flame out of fire. Once listen to that voice and all tumult is done. Your life is the life of the Infinite One. In the hurrying race you are conscious of pause, with love for the purpose and love for the cause. You are your own devil, you are your own God. You fashioned the path your footsteps have trod. And no one can save you from error or sin until you have hearkened to the Spirit within. Then this was the short version because I skipped a
Just started a new religion.
Well, yeah, we are rediscovering the wisdom of Maoris. We are discovering the wisdom of the old Indian, native Indians. There's so much wisdom, and we need to apply it on a higher level where we say, okay, we are now really all connected, and now we need to reinstate this new kind of religions without too much dogma. So let's try it.
Yeah, well, let's.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you so much, Manfred. I really enjoyed our conversation.
I loved it too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.